welcome on stage Stefan Ignjatovic.
Is this on? Okay, it is. Thank you very much. So, good morning. I'm here to wake you up and to tell you some useful things that you could probably use Monday morning. So, a little introduction from my part. I'm Stefan, and I'm a business developer coming from MVP Workshop, a blockchain research and development studio based in Belgrade, Serbia. So, let's get into this, right? Okay. First of all, we saw that there is one big, let's say, mistake that a great majority of blockchain products or projects make when they're trying to go into the market. And that is that most of them start bottom up, meaning that there's an engineering team, they like some technology, they like some blockchain tech stack, and they try to fit it in their product. When in fact, it should be the other way around. The thing that is missing right now in the blockchain space on a global level, and one of the key elements which is crucial for mass adoption, which we all strive for, is business development. Because it doesn't matter if your product is on blockchain or not, you need to develop it properly. You need to map the value streams, you need to define the stakeholders, you need to offer real value to the user and not just tell him this is on blockchain. Because honestly, when it comes to users on the street, nobody cares if it's blockchain or not. So, how do we do things? First of all, you basically have two key areas that you need to cover. First is why. Why are we making this product? What problem is it solving? What pain point with the users is it tackling? On the other side, you need to think about product sustainability, meaning how is it going to grow? And that starts with defining the proper team for the product development. We as a company are in a service business, which means that we develop products on blockchain for our clients. And when a client approaches us with a project, the first thing we do is that we define the team which is going to tackle the project. Does that mean business developers, engineers, gardeners? Honestly, anybody who has the necessary skill set to properly map the whole network. So, we're going to start with that, defining the team and stakeholders and making the product sustainable in the long term. There are two key factors here. On one side, products on blockchain are ecosystems, meaning that there is no central authority which is, distributing incentives and making sure that everything works properly. It's literally like nature. It needs to be properly balanced, and all stakeholders in the system need to be properly incentivized in order for system to function and grow sustainably. What we noticed in our work with our clients is that blockchain projects usually put too much focus on the users and don't properly develop the incentives for all the stakeholders in the network in order for it to function properly. On the other side, we need to think about the optimal team which we need for developing the product. And that means three key things: the skill set needed to analyze and build everything, the accountability, meaning that I am accountable for the end result of certain process, of a certain action, and responsibility, meaning that there are people responsible for something to actually be done. And there is a really clear parallel with Scrum here, where if I'm accountable, I need to pick the right team and the right setup, and I need to clearly define what I want the output to be. On the other side, I'm leaving it to the people who I chose to do something to be responsible for how it is done, and I'm not meddling in that. So, those are the two key things we are starting with. Of course, to answer one of the questions that a lot of blockchain projects have, who is our competition exactly? Is it like other blockchain projects? Is it centralized competition, like the traditional marketplaces? We found that probably the best answer for this question is that our competition right now are the end user habits and pain points, because right now we are not tackling them properly. And this is fine. Whenever a new technology comes up, engineers are the one who drive the initial adoption, because they see the potential. They see how that technology can change products, services, and possibly the whole world. But the thing is that we cannot expect that this is going to happen with blockchain, as it happened with, I don't know, Facebook or HTTPS or whatever else. And there is one key reason for that. Blockchain is changing the base set, blockchain is changing the paradigm and the base set of responsibilities that we as people have towards our assets. I mean, let's take a really simple example. If I have a transactional cryptocurrency, which I'm using to pay for my coffee and pay my bills and everything, up until now, if I'm doing that with fiat, I have my bank, which is taking care of my funds. If my card gets stolen, I just call my bank and say, cancel the card. If I made a transaction, I'll just call my bank and say, roll back the transaction. And of course, I'm paying fees for that. My central bank in my country is taking care that my national fiat currency is stable, isn't volatile, and everything else. If I'm using a transactional crypto, I have to do all those things. And honestly, do we really think that even the people in this room are capable of doing that on a daily basis? I mean, we think we're still not there. And business development and proper product development is what is going to bring us to that point. So, there are 3 key areas which we think will help a lot with driving the mass adoption on a global scale. First, making documentation humanly understandable. I'm not talking about humanly readable, I'm talking about humanly understandable. If you're signing up, I mean, this is not a problem just with blockchain products. This is a problem with all digital services in general. If I am signing up for some service on blockchain, it would be amazing if the company who is behind the service would be fair and honest with the user. And instead of giving him 50 pages of terms of service, which nobody can understand, because we need to be lawyers in order to interpret that, give them 1 page saying, these things will happen, these things won't happen, these things might happen. If that is not enough for the user, then here you go, here's your 50 pages. But let's help the users actually know what's going to happen and how they should use our service. Next, human-centric blockchain design standards. We're going to tackle a couple of examples of this on the next slides. And last, initiatives that educate and build trust on a global scale. Meaning that at some point in the near future, we need to have some organizations, some corporations, some relevant bodies which will be the rock of trust when it comes to blockchain and crypto, and for that trust to spread from there. But let's take a look at the human-centric blockchain design standards. For example, why are we still using seed phrases and key store files? They sound sexy, they're new, and we're like, yeah, seed phrases, key store files. That is destroying the ability of a user to actually understand what he's doing. Why don't we just use recovery phrase and recovery key? Because that is exactly what they are. I mean, mnemonic phrase sounds great, but 98% of people first have no idea what it is, and even when you explain it to them, it's a really big question if they're gonna accept it and understand it properly. Another example is display only the information that provides value to the user and with which he can do something at this point. A really good example of this, I mean, this is a really good example. Why do this on the left when you can do this on the right? I mean, this thing on the left is scary even for me. I mean, I have to spend a lot of time and mental capacity to figure out which information do I actually need and which I can use and what is not relevant. Another really good example of this is when you have the onboarding processes and the KYCs. For example, if I'm signing up for some online exchange, why do I need to go through half an hour or an hour of a KYC? Why not break it down into steps and in each step ask only the information that you actually need from the user? For example, a couple of weeks ago, we were on Berlin Blockchain Week, and I was signing up for Shapeshift, and they didn't ask me to do the whole KYC. It took like 2 minutes for me to get registered on the platform, and they told me, when you actually want to trade, then we'll finish your KYC. And that friction lowers the adaptability, and instead of you dropping 90% of your potential users, you'll drop 70% of your potential users. So, one other key thing is we, as a blockchain R&D studio, when we work with our clients, the first thing that we ask our clients and analyze is, do you really need blockchain? I mean, sure, there are situations where a project wants to incorporate blockchain in one way or the other to get money from the VCs or investment or whatever, and that's fine. I mean, it's not really fine, but it's completely understandable. They have a goal. We want to get money, and that's it. But when a client comes to us, we analyze the project and completely honestly tell them, even if that means that we're not getting that job, you don't need blockchain. Here are our development partners who are not blockchain oriented, and they will help you facilitate your solution. But why force blockchain when it's not the best tool for the job? I mean, we need to make products that actually work for the real people in the real world. And I don't think that we are there right now. So, that was the part with defining the team and stakeholders and thinking about sustainability in the long term. Now, let's take a look at why. Why are we making this product? Does anybody actually care about it? We saw that, I mean, we came up into a lot of problems when validating decentralized business models over the years because we had no proper tools to actually do that. I mean, for example, if you take the business model canvas, which I think we all know here, I mean, that's completely inadequate for a decentralized project. And since we had no other solution, we decided to develop our own tools, which will help us quickly pivot business models in a decentralized space and properly map the stakeholders, value streams, and everything else that is needed for the system to function properly. Basically, that is why we developed the Decentralized Business Model Canvas, which is completely free, by the way, and you can find it on our website and use it however you want. And it basically looks like this. So, the key segments of the decentralized canvas are, of course, user or customer segment, meaning the user persona. Next, the clear value proposition. The proposed solution, reaching trust. Validator incentives, that's talking about the stakeholders. Cost structure, as with any other project, doesn't really matter if it's blockchain or not. Network governance. Interaction channels, which are even more important than traditional communication channels for traditional products, for gathering feedback. And, of course, last but not least, revenue streams. And, I mean, don't get me wrong, but what we're saying here is when you develop products on blockchain, you don't have to act like that's something specific. Develop the product as you would develop any other product. There's a really good anecdote. For example, when, I think it was in the 80s or something like that, when IKEA wanted to enter the Japanese market with their portfolio. And they just entered the Japanese market with their portfolio as is, from the Western world. And nobody was buying that. Because nobody in IKEA thought to say, okay, has anybody checked how a Japanese apartment looks like? I mean, our furniture is too big, the style is not right, and Japanese people don't want to build their own furniture. So they were in Japan for a couple of years, didn't go really well. They went back to Europe and came back a couple of years after that, doing some thorough research, and then they kicked ass. Like, this is a really simple example, but let's do that with blockchain products. I mean, the word blockchain, or the fact that the product is on blockchain, is not gonna sell it to the users on the street. Clear value is gonna sell it to the users on the street. Now, after this, we need to gather all the facts pertaining to the product market mix. But two key things that we need to take care of here. First one is, blockchain is a technology stack. It's not a solution. And when you read news outlets or when you talk to people, a lot of people and a lot of blockchain projects are basically saying, yeah, blockchain is the solution. Well, no, it's not. It's a technology stack. Your solution is the solution. Your business plan is the solution. Your value streams are the solution. Blockchain is just a technology stack which makes you able to facilitate that solution in the real world. And at the end of the day, the user doesn't need to know what's underneath, and he doesn't care. I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but I would really like for this to stick with you and for you to think about this from time to time. Because this is one of the key things that's going to drive mass adoption. Next, what we saw a lot of projects do is turn correlations into causalities. That is not the same. Analyze the facts pertaining to your product market mix and everything that is connected with your system or network, but don't turn correlations into causalities. Make sure what is the cause-effect relationship of all the elements in your system. Because if you don't do that, if you don't properly map those causalities, then you're gonna stumble in the dark. You're gonna make decisions based on nothing. I mean, you won't really know what your users are doing. You won't be able to do app attributions. You will have no idea how to, I don't know, change the UX or UI in order to actually improve the user experience. You'll be doing that based on your own intuition or your own experience and not on the facts, not on the causalities. So make sure that you properly map those causalities. And honestly, I really I really enjoyed yesterday, as I'm sure I'm going to enjoy today, because I see that the whole Eternity ecosystem actually puts an important accent on that business development part. And that they recognize that we should just approach product development as with any other product. Not change anything just because it's on blockchain. Now, another thing that we strongly recommend you do when developing your products is do the risks properly. We have rare were the situations where our clients or some blockchain projects that we were talking about actually mapped out their risks properly. And there are two things to do here. First of all, you have the centralization versus decentralization trade-off. Of course, job to be done, the decentralization opportunity, the downside, the current intermediary in the centralized world, and how is our solution better than what he is offering, and of course, the centralized competitors which exist. On the other side, we need to make assumptions, right? We cannot do all the research, we cannot know everything, so at some point, we will need to make some assumptions. assumption, the possibility of it being wrong, the impact of it being wrong, total risk level, and proposed test and success metric. Probably the most important thing is the proposed test and success metric, because that's the thing with correlations and causalities. If you do this wrong, you'll get correlations and not causalities, and thus your decision-making process will be skewed. And maybe you'll get lucky, and maybe your decision will go well, but I mean, do you really want to take that risk? On the other side, when we're talking about the risks of a blockchain project in general, I mean, this is a clearly on the side of business development. You need to identify the key risks for your project. And that doesn't just mean identify the risks. Identify the risk, figure out how you're going to prevent it, and probably most importantly, figure out if the risk happens and you cannot prevent it, how are you going to mitigate it? And again, this has nothing to do with blockchain. Of course, when we talk about all of this, we cannot forget the technical side of blockchain and its usability with the end users. I mean, of course, there is some way for blockchain as a technology to improve, primarily regarding speed and cost, but it all depends for what you're using it. I mean, if you're using it for a ride-sharing app or something like that, well, probably speed is more important. If you're using it for a peer-to-peer lending platform, speed is probably not that important. More important is the security part. So, the user personas, something that you learn pretty early in business school, but something that is still not used in the blockchain space. For example, we had some experiences where, let's take a peer-to-peer lending platform, for example. We were analyzing it, and we saw that that platform had one defined user persona. And then we tackled it, and we found 5. Why? Because some people wanted to lend money and earn interest. Some people just wanted to hodl the crypto and wait for it to rise in value. Some people wanted to borrow money from other people, etc., etc. 5 user personas. I mean, we really need to think about our users and see what are their motivations, what are their core needs, what are their pain points, why are they using this product. If you don't do your user persona properly, you will, again, be stumbling in the dark. You really will not be sure what you're doing and what you should be doing to drive adoption of your product and to actually provide your users with a decentralized service which is better than the centralized competition and solutions which exist on the market right now. When we finish with the user personas, we can properly construct the user flows and the lo-fi design for our app or platform or whatever. And this is now a proper base for the minimum viable product. And I mean, I went through this pretty quickly because when we held this talk during the Berlin Blockchain Week, it took like an hour. This has nothing to do with the tech stack. This is all on the side of mapping out the product. And after you do all of this and some other important things, I mean, this is how that looks in our case, but after you do all of this, only then does your engineering team take the spotlight and decide what is the optimal tech stack, what is the best tool for the job to implement your product. Now, I think I left some time for Q&A, right?
Q&A?
Yeah, so I would really love to, hear what you think about this, or if you have any questions, yeah,
okay,
go.
I'll hand the mic.
Hi, this is something we've been basically discussing internally a bit. I think, when the teams are just starting with the ICOs, and then they already predetermine themselves to a fixed business plan without a possibility of pivoting, etc., etc., etc. What is your opinion on raising capital through blockchain means and ensuring that at a later point you might bail out of blockchain as your core technology stack?
Well, I mean, we have one of our clients is actually an STO platform. They provide you with all the tools that you need to tokenize any of your assets, whatever you need. So I think that if that is done properly, crowdfunding via blockchain, gathering funds via blockchain, basically tokenizing the asset, really makes sense. But in that case, it's like 10 or 100 or 1,000 times more important that your ecosystem is properly mapped and that you make sure that it is, from the very beginning, it's balanced as much as it can be balanced, and that you have proper mechanisms that will, ensure that that balance stays in place. I mean, when talking about the ICOs, whenever I hear somebody say ICO, I get chills because, because the ICO era really didn't help the blockchain space at all. It really didn't. But I mean, hopefully we learned some things from that. Yeah. So hopefully I answered your question.
Okay, do we have more questions from the audience? No?
Okay, thank you very much. You can check out our website and our blog. You can download the Decentralized Business Model Canvas, use it freely. We have a blog post with 10 UI design heuristics for the blockchain space. Again, check it out, use them freely, and follow us because we're gonna do some more work on developing tools which we all need. So hopefully we'll catch you on the flip side. And hopefully you enjoy this talk. Have a great day.
Thank you, Stefan.